and I see a few more names coming in the chat, and so that's awesome. And Jason is going to set you up. Let's see. I am going to take you through the first part of this, but Jason is the real head honcho here. So I'm sort of like Vanna White to his Pat Sajak today, I think, because he's going to be the one doing the serious demo. So just to do quick introductions, Jason, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Oh, hi. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Barbara. I'm Jason Pierce. I'm at the University of North Carolina in Greensboro, and I've been using Teammates for, I guess, just about a year now. So I think it's really great, and look forward to working with you today. And you'll hear more from me later.
Sorry. Okay. And I'm Barbara Larson. I'm at Northeastern University, and I'm in the management group there at the business school. And this is my, I don't know, 6th or 7th OBTC. Sorry, I still call it, obviously I'm dating myself, MOBTC. Could we maybe do very quick introductions, just going around? And I'm actually going to call on people because you guys all show up in different orders, but I would just love to hear where everybody's from. And actually, if you could tell us what your school is, but also where you are physically located right now, that would be great. So can we start with Cindy? Cindy Fukami? You're off mute.
Hey,
you're good.
I'm off mute. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a bad habit of doing that. I'm Cindy Fukami. I'm a professor of management at the University of Denver, Daniels College of Business, and I'm sitting in my sunroom in Denver.
Nice. Okay. And Paul?
I'm Paul McAfee. I am visiting lecturer of strategy at UNC Asheville. I actually live in Lockport near Buffalo, New York, and I'm a PhD student in education.
Great. Okay. I see someone whose name is not showing up, who has a gray shirt on and is sitting in front of a bookshelf, and with yes, I'm talking to you. Go ahead and unmute yourself. No? Okay, I'm going to keep going then. Maybe we can come back to you. Melissa Fender?
There are two Melissas, so I wasn't sure who you meant to start. Okay. I'll do it the other way around. I am currently sitting in my basement office at home. I live in a small, well, it's Berwyn, Pennsylvania, and I'm 6 miles from Valley Forge National Park and about 25 miles west of Philadelphia. But I cross the river and teach at Rutgers in Camden, New Jersey.
Great. Okay, welcome. And Rose?
Hi, everybody. My name's Rose Hare. I'm an associate professor of management at Nazareth College in Rochester, New York, and that's where I am right now. I'm at home. I'm in my study with my daughter playing YouTube videos next door, so hence the headphones.
Nice. Awesome. We love YouTube videos. Let's see, Debbie Thomas.
Hi all, I'm Debbie Thomas, and I'm an assistant professor of management at George Fox University in Portland, Oregon, and I'm here at home in the Portland area.
Great. Okay. And Christian Calderon?
Yes. Hi. Good morning. Christian Calderon here. I'm a professor at Pacific University in Portland, Oregon. I'm also sitting home in Portland.
Okay, great. And David Stellick?
Yeah. Hi. David Stellick. I'm assistant professor of management and leadership at University of St. Francis, the Keith Bussey School of Business and Entrepreneurial Leadership in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I am in my office.
Okay, with a beautiful view or a nice virtual background.
Yeah, that's Sofia, Bulgaria.
Ah, nice. And Ali?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Okay, I'm Allie Dockner. I am an associate professor of management at John Carroll University in Cleveland, Ohio. And I live in Beechwood, and I'm also in a sunroom to hopefully maintain some quiet and calm with my other 5 family members home at all times with me.
Oh, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Let's see, how about Stephanie Van Dellen?
Hi, I am a visiting assistant professor at Purdue University, Fort Wayne. So I am in Fort Wayne in my home office at the moment.
Okay, great. And Melissa Knott?
I'm Melissa, and I'm at Western New England University in Springfield, Massachusetts, and I'm at home and nearby. This is my Welcome Center picture behind us, so it's very pretty. And I will be leaving a few minutes early because I have to go pick my son up from camp.
Okay, that's the nice thing about, well, the good and the bad, right, about virtual conferences, is the real world is there, whether we want it or not. How about Carol?
Carol Borman Young. I'm from Metropolitan State University in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, and I'm sitting at my dining room table because my husband has overtaken our computer room.
Hey, there you go. Well, those are intense negotiations these days, right? How about Carlos?
Hi, I'm an assistant professor of management and international business at Colorado Mesa University in Grand Junction, Colorado. This is the west side of Colorado, so it's more desert with a bunch of monuments and things like that. That's it.
Great, wonderful. And how about Jennifer Knippen?
Yes, hello everyone. Jennifer Knippen. I'm assistant professor of management and entrepreneurship at Eckerd College in very sunny and even more humid St. Petersburg, Florida.
Nice.
Oh, I feel that.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, all right. And is it Kathleen or Kathy? I'm not sure. Novak.
Screen name is Kathleen, but it's Kathy Novak, and I'm a colleague of Cindy Fukami's. I'm an assistant teaching professor at the University of Denver, and I am in my home basement with my service dog puppy in training, who hopefully will continue.
Well, we like cameo appearances, so that's totally fine. Let's see, Mark, I want to go to you next, but it looks like you're chewing. You want me to wait?
Oh no, I'm fine. Sorry. Hi, I'm Mark Promislo from Rider University, and I teach management and organizational behavior.
Okay, great. And Kelly Fisher?
Hi, everyone. I'm associate professor at Westchester University, and I'm right outside Philadelphia.
Great. How about Bruce?
Hi, I'm Bruce Payton from Menlo College in Atherton, California. I teach management and sustainable business, and I'm in Sunnyvale, which is in the heart of Silicon Valley.
Great. How about Kimberly O'Connor?
Hi, I'm Kimberly O'Connor. I'm an associate professor at Purdue University, Fort Wayne. We wish you were all in Fort Wayne with us right now, but that's where I am. I'm actually in my screened-in porch. I have 3 daughters at home who are all in show choir, which is their main activity, and they all sing. So at any moment, they could break out in a variety of Broadway musical show tunes, anything like that. So I have to kind of find my quiet spot. So I'll mute myself from now on, just so that we're extra safe, but it can get loud at my house. So.
Great. Okay, wow. All right, and Kim Gower.
Hello, I'm Kim Gower. I heard somebody brought up monuments. So behind me is actually one of the Confederate monuments. I live in Richmond, Virginia, and I teach at University of Mary Washington. And this was, there are great things going on in Richmond. It's very exciting. So during Pride Week, it was a week after everybody really started, picking up with the Black Lives Matter movement. And so we've had all kinds of marches. We have all kinds of video of police officers spraying people for no reason and knocking them over. Normally, I'm a big fan of the police department, but things have gotten crazy here. But did a recent survey, and even though Virginia usually is pretty conservative, a lot of people are realizing this is the time. So there's a video editor who cast the rainbow flag and Black Lives Matter on one of the Confederate statues. So I like to use that as my background because it covers lots of areas. But,
yes, it's like current events all in one screen.
It is. And so, it's exciting to be able to do that. And it's exciting to be in Richmond at this time. And I've said in a couple different sessions already today, and just learning so much and having a good time. So glad to be here with you all.
Great. Thanks, Kim. Let's see, we have Kathy Lundeen.
Hey everybody, I work at Gustavus Adolphus College, a ELCA liberal arts school south of the Twin Cities. And I'm in my regular office because I have teenagers that take up all the bandwidth at home. And yeah, so that's why I'm here.
Oh yeah, good times, good times. All right, let's see, Fernando.
Hey everybody, I am in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. I teach at James Madison University, and it's great to see you all.
Great to see you. And then let's see, Christina.
I think Fernando just stole my thunder. I think there's 3 James Madison University
Okay.
management faculty here, Bob Elias and myself and Fernando Pargas. But I teach in the management department at James Madison University, and I teach entrepreneurship and organizational behavior.
Okay. Well, so I'll go to Bob next. He was going incognito earlier, but now I see his name. So yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I was eating, yes. I'm at James Madison University, but right now I'm outside Washington, D.C.
Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome. And then we have Brenda Bailey Hughes, I think.
Hey there, everybody. Brenda Bailey Hughes. I teach with the Kelley School of Business at IU. I'm a couple of hours south of IU Fort Wayne, where we were all supposed to be at the on the IU Bloomington campus. Well, that's where I teach. I'm technically in Bloomington, but in my home office. Thank you. Looking forward to your presentation.
All right, thank you. And then Adaora Ubaka.
Hi, I'm a fourth-year student at the University of Illinois at Chicago.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome. And then I had one person still whose name is not showing up. I'm going to try again. Gray blouse woman with shoulder length hair with an armchair behind her and a bookshelf. Oh, Sandy, there you go. Now I can see. Okay, Sandy Deacon Carr.
Yes, hi, I'm Sandy. I'm a master lecturer at Boston University in the Management and Organizations Department at the School of Business there. And I am at my home office, which is in York, Maine. So.
Oh, nice. Okay, great. Well, you're getting thunderstorms today like we are here in Boston, I suspect. But
yes.
Nonetheless, a nice view, I'm sure. Okay, great. Well, I'm sorry for taking a lot of time on introductions, but I think in a virtual setting like this, it's really, it's a large part of what we're missing. And so I think it's worthwhile for us to know who's with us. So I'm just going to go quickly through the agenda for today. And again, stop me at any point. I can see almost all of you on my big monitor. When I'm looking up like this, I'm not like worshiping the heavens. I'm actually looking at a large monitor, and I can see 25 of you at a time. There are 30 on this call, so I can see almost everybody. But if you feel like you have something you need that's not getting addressed, speak up. Just unmute yourself and speak up. Otherwise, if you could keep yourself on mute during the session, that's great. I think most of you are doing that already. Thank you. So today we're going to talk very briefly about typical challenges with team projects and peer evaluation in particular, just to anchor us in the session. And then Jason is going to walk us very briefly through a history of the Teammates app and its availability. And then we get to the good stuff. Then he's going to walk us through a demonstration, both from the student perspective and the instructor perspective. He's also going to share an Excel macro that he has developed over the years for larger class sizes with lots of teams that then enables him to do faster processing of output of results. And so he'll show you what he does, hopefully give you some ideas of things that you could do similarly. And then we'll wrap up with some discussion of your own key challenges and best practice. We have also collected quite a few questions from you in the pre-survey that most of you filled out. Thank you for filling that out. I will say one more time for those who joined late, if you haven't done so already, if you could very quickly at this point chat in your name and email address to Jason in the Zoom chat function, so that he can get you set up in the demo. And if we don't manage to do that for some latecomers, you can follow along because we'll be sharing our screens as well. Okay, great. Let's see. Oh no, I think I've got the wrong, I'm missing a slide, Jason. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. I don't need it. We can just do it. I'm good. I'm good. Okay. So let's talk about challenges with teams and peer evaluation. So first of all, just very quickly, a couple of people give me some ideas. Well, why do we bother with team projects in our classes? Like, what is the good stuff? What are the benefits of teams?
Reduces grading workload.
Okay. So complete honesty, it reduces grading workload. This can be really important in large classes in particular. Okay. How about benefits for the students? What do the students get out of it?
Teaches them how to delegate tasks and accomplish a task as a group.
Okay. So gives them an opportunity to talk about collaboration. Yeah. What else?
Yeah, I think we have it as a part of our SLOs that, you know, students have to, they need to know how to interact in teams. I mean, they tend to be really good as an individuals, but then usually tend to fail on their first experiences working with others.
Yeah, definitely. And so then what is the, in fact, I'm just going to unshare this for a minute. What is the downside of teams in the student experience? What is the most common complaint that you hear from students?
Social loafing.
Okay, social loafing, right? I like kind of fed that one to you guys. Yeah, this is the number one reason that students don't like team projects, and so, you know, and this is the reason, of course, that peer evaluations have evolved so that it's possible to have both you know, a team sort of oriented grade and then a grade or part of the grade that captures individual achievement and individual contribution. So that's good, right? How many of you, maybe just in Zoom, you hopefully can do a little hand raise here, or else just physically raise your hand. How many of you have used peer evaluations for team projects in the past? How many of you? Okay, so not absolutely everybody, but a lot of you. I'd say a majority. Okay, great. And so what are the good and the bad about peer evaluations? What do you find? What's the upside for peer evaluations? Now you can just speak up.
Well,
Yeah,
you
I'll
can see
jump in.
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
That's all right. I was going to say that you can see if there has been social loafing, and for the students, it might create some sort of accountability to help prevent some of the loafing if they know that they're going to be evaluated by their peers later.
Okay, great.
Downside I've experienced, especially when teaching in Asia, is it's really hard to get the students to rat on other students. And it usually doesn't come out until the end of the term when they realize somebody's done nothing all semester.
Yeah, okay. And I'm seeing some good chats in here too. You can chat answers that, you know, the students don't want to do peer feedbacks and they don't put much effort into it, or some take the opportunity to really attack peers. Okay, so that is definitely a challenge of peer feedback. What else is challenging for you as instructors about peer feedback? You know, once you get it, what happens then?
I've played with lots of different ways on how to affect the grade from it, and I still don't know that I have like a great answer on what to do with it.
Okay, so how, and somebody said, and Paul said, can you really assign a grade to a peer score?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest problems that I find out, and I've been doing peer evaluations the last 4 years, is that some students tend to not contribute in the peer evaluation, and therefore they grade everybody equal, while some others, and perhaps those free riders, they understand how to play the game, and what they do is that they use the peer evaluation in their favor. So indirectly, what these individuals that are not participating, grading properly their peer members or assessing them, are collaborating to their failure, because those are the ones that usually receive the less grades.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, no, and that's a big problem. And Kathy Lundeen says, you know, conflict averse students don't give developmental feedback even anonymously, and they've not been taught how to do so. And, you know, if used, you know, assertively, and through the semester, peer evaluations actually can be a way of teaching students to give developmental feedback. But that takes a fair amount of investment of effort, and a lot of times we use them right at the end of the semester, and then it's kind of too late. Okay, we're getting some other good comments in here. Since we're recording this session, these will be retained as well. Yes, Cindy.
I also feel like there's mixed motives for the students. You know, on the one hand, they want to give feedback, especially if there are issues in the team. But on the other hand, they're going to be in teams with these same people for several more times, potentially. Right. And they are friends. They have social relationships with them, not just learning relationships with them. And so, you know, I've had students who have their roommates in the class with them, and it's just not something they want to touch.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one of the things that Kim Gower says that, you know, I think is worthwhile is making them do qualitative. That can help. It doesn't always solve the problem, but it can help. Okay, I've got to move on. I've just gotten, Jason has messaged me, we're already at 1:25, so I've got to move on so we get to the demo. Let's see. Jason, do you want to go ahead? I'll share my screen again, and you can walk us through the slide on sort of the history.
Yep.
Yeah.
While I'm doing that, can you check your email and make sure you got the announcement for the demo survey as a student?
Oh, okay, sure. I'll do that right now.
Thanks.
Except I can't do that. Oh yeah, I'll do it on my phone. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, great. All right, so hi everybody. So just, I've been teaching since 2015 when I started my PhD in Indiana. You know, one of you, I forgot who said there from IU Bloomington. That's where I did my PhD once upon a time. And when I was there, I wanted to just solve many of the problems that you just brought up, and said, well, how would I do peer evaluations? And I tried doing it in paper and pencil and found it very, very challenging. And then I know Kathy Lundeen said she uses CAPME, and I've discovered CAPME. But what I found with CAPME was that the type of feedback you can request is limited. It's a static environment. They give you predefined questions. And Kathy, please jump in here if I get this, if I'm off in any way, but I just reviewed it recently and it seems to be pretty much the same way. CAPME does offer functionality for creating teams, which this application that we're going to demo does not. But when it comes to actually the feedback you can obtain and process, I find that Teammates is going to offer you something a lot better. But until I discovered Teammates, I would discover this is very labor intensive. It gets more complex the more students you add, and excuse me, tools like Qualtrics, unless you have the 360-degree feedback feature, which some people might, but we don't. It's very difficult to process the data because it requires it to be put into a matrix, and that's a non-trivial task, as we like to say in computer science. So I started talking to colleagues about potentially developing such an app, and one of them, who was an experienced web developer, said you really need to check to see if somebody has done this first, because it's not worth investing in it if it's already been done. I just did discover one thing, and then somewhere along the lines I heard of Teammates. Turns out Teammates was launched in 2010. Okay, thank you, Kathy. And it's launched by the National University of Singapore School of Computing. It's currently used in 1,916 institutions across 96 countries. And to whoever asked about the cost, it is completely free of charge. And even better than that, their customer service is amazing. They respond super fast. So I'm not sure, I'm not sure how that model works exactly, but it's wonderful from the user perspective. So we can move on and show you what it looks like. Now let me transition. Did you get the invite, by the way, Barbara?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I might have to apologize to some of you. This is, of course, a dynamic environment and a new one for many of us. The way that surveys work, or the evaluations work from a student perspective, is it's set up in advance. It has a scheduled launch time, which our demo scheduled launch time was 1 o'clock. Now, if you completed our survey in advance, then we added you to the roster, and hopefully you got an email just this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are, telling you that the survey is now available. At least Barbara did, so she's going to walk through it.
I just got it at 1 o'clock. So
right at 1 o'clock.
yeah, I just got it like a 1:02 or something like that. Yeah.
So there's a lot more of you than we expected, which is exciting, but also more challenging from our side. So what we're going to do is this. I won't be able to handle each case because of the time constraints and the number of people. So there's two ways you can go. If you did get the email, great. Open it and complete the survey. And if you did not, then Barbara is going to complete the survey as a student. She's in Team B, I believe, for Barbara.
Okay. Okay.
Paul did not. And oh, I'm sorry, Paul. I thought you did. I thought I had you in that list. Did you check your Buffalo email, Paul? So
I'll check. Yeah, I've checked a couple times. I'll look around and see if it's got past me, but I don't see it.
okay. Well, let me just put this out to the rest. Did anybody in the group besides Barbara get the invite?
Okay. Looks like quite a few people did.
They did. Okay.
Yeah, they're raising their hands.
Okay, good. All right.
An invitation for what?
Excuse me?
From teammates. It would be an email from teammates, and it would say feedback session now open. I received mine at 1:02, so just when this session started.
Also, a reminder out is one of the features.
Yeah, so you got it, Kathy? All right, great.
Okay, so they got it. All right, good. Okay,
Yeah.
so you got it.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and share my screen.
If you didn't get it, Barbara's going to share her screen, and she's going to go through it and talk through it. We'll talk through it as Barbara goes through it.
Yeah, you can see the email on the right-hand side of the screen here. This is what it should look like when you receive it. Feedback session now open. It'll say course. This is the demo course for MOBTC. And then you should see a link just below this little box. You'll see a very long, complicated looking link. That is your unique link to enter the survey, to enter the feedback session. And so if I click on that link, it will take me into my session. So you should see something that looks like this. Is everybody seeing that okay? Either on your screen or on my screen? Okay. And then it'll say, you know, so I'm looking at it from the point of view of a student right now, right? It says you're submitting feedback as Barbara Larson. And then it will take me through a number of questions. Let's see, Jason, do you want to walk us through these questions?
Sure. Yeah, I'll explain the questions.
These are actually your, yep.
Yep. This survey that you're seeing is the survey I used in my OB class last fall. And I have a couple rationales, and I know some of you asked about using the peer evals for grading purposes, and this is how it's designed, and we'll explain that as we go. But I'll just introduce this type of question. It's a type of question where you're looking for more of a quantitative evaluation of your teammates. And in this case, I exclude the self. Some of you might want your students to evaluate themselves. I exclude them. I have a social psychology background, and I like to avoid all bias that I can to the extent possible. So I try to rule that out. In this case, I give, okay. If you look at, there's a general question at the top on the blue banner, if you could scroll up, Barbara. Just, there's 4 components I asked them about. One is their contributions to class exercises, because they do the class exercises with their team as well as a semester-long project. So then I asked them to distribute 100 points across the other members of their team. And then I just explain that in the more details. And I give them an example of what that would look like.
Okay, should I scroll down?
Scroll down and you can just put some points in for Cindy and
Okay.
Kathleen.
Now, I'll point out here that Jason, when he put this in for today, he pre-assigned us to teams. So, you know, Paul, you know, Rose, Sarah, Cindy, you know, you guys are my teammates, right? So I get to, you know, I get 100 points now, and I get to, yeah, you know, all campaigning and bribes are welcome, but let me see what I can do here. So I'm gonna put in, let's see, 15 for Cindy. I'll put in 25 for Kathy, 25 for Paul. Let's see, I'm gonna put in 10 for Professor Van, is that right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, whoever that was, that I didn't, Google let me down. I couldn't find out whose name was associated with that, with the Vans.
Okay. Okay, so we apologize for that, whoever that is. Sorry if I'm underrating you. And then I'll give Rose 12 and Sarah 13. How about that? Okay, and I get at the bottom, it runs the math and it says I've distributed all of my points. Okay, so that's how a points distribution question would work. Okay, go ahead, Jason.
Okay, so the next.
Oh, and these are all the same, right? I mean, similar
the next
format.
3 questions are the same structure. It's just showing that the first one's for class exercises. Second one is contributions to project deliverables, because the team project has 4 deliverables that are spread out across the term. And then you could fill that one in quickly.
Okay. Oops. Sorry, Sarah, in advance. Yes, nothing personal.
Carol has asked about, yes, it will tell you if you try to give more than 100 points.
Oh yeah, I'll show what that'll look like. Okay, got it, Carol? You see that? Okay, great. All right, so I'll go back to dinging Sarah unfairly here. Okay.
I keep my teams to 4 to 6. In this example, the teams are a little bit larger, so it's a little bit awkward to distribute 100 points, but between 4 and 5 people, it's pretty straightforward. Okay. And there's another option, if you like to include them, that actually makes this easier. I have to use this approach because I like to exclude them. All right, so okay. The next question is about their liability of the project meetings. Again, the same structure.
A lot of you guys did not show up to meetings. Sorry. Okay.
Well, Kim's tough. She makes a good feedback face to face. Okay, we'll talk about the qualitative feedback in a second, Kim. Okay. And the last of the quantitative is professionalism. Again, these are just my questions. You can make whatever questions you want, and we'll show you in a bit how you can do that.
Yeah, and we're not advocating specifically for these questions. This is just an example that we're using because the survey is already set up, and Jason is going to show you in a minute another, you know, how you would start your own survey and the range of questions that are available to you. So this is just, you know, kind of a taste here.
And one of the reasons I wanted to introduce my questions is because I'm also going to show you how I take the scores that are given and turn those into grade adjustments. And so by introducing you, you'll be able to follow that grade adjustment a little bit more than if you didn't know what the questions were in the first place.
Okay.
Okay, so the 5th question is also quantitative, but it is a forced ranking. And I'll explain how I use that later on. But there are possibilities for ties, and we know in the real world that we can only sometimes hire 1 or 2 people, or if things are unpleasant, we might have to fire 1 or 2 people, and that is how we decide whether we want to admit it or not. So I have them force rank their teammates.
Okay, and you're focusing on the hiring aspect here. I can see in the wording
I
of
like
the
to use the
question.
positive psychology and frame it that way for them, because they tend to get very upset. You know, if I don't, at least my IU students didn't like the forced ranking. I'd say, well, sometimes you can only hire 1 or 2 people. You have to figure out which one it's going to be.
Okay, great.
Okay, so the last 3 questions are also of the same, they're different, they're qualitative, but they're same format, they're essays. Now this one, can you scroll up? I can't see the, okay, yeah, this is to the teammate. So to each teammate, they write a comment about, and I give them tips and the more details. You know, Jeff McMullen at IU likes to do this actually when he requests feedback for himself from his students. What should I keep doing? What should I start doing? What should I stop doing? So I ask them to write, and I also encourage them to be specific and to use the first person as if they're writing to the person. You'll be amazed how many students will write this in the third person. But as if giving, and somebody mentioned this as a benefit of giving feedback, practice and learning how to give feedback to others, to colleagues, and so forth. So they write that in the spaces below.
Okay.
Yeah. And in my own personal journey, by the way, learning how to coach them, and this is still a big challenge to get them to give good feedback, is really, really tricky. So this is, I don't know what iteration of instructions and details, but it's went through several major changes as I have been going through this experience.
Okay, so just in the interest of time, I am gonna, and you can see that how there's actually like a formatting bar. Hopefully you can see that on my screen that pops up that will actually allow you to do emphasis and so forth. That's actually relatively new. So that's the other thing that I like about Teammates is they have continued to upgrade this over the years. And I don't know where, they must get funding from the Singapore government. I actually don't know where their funding comes from, but it is there really, it is an active, it's not like something somebody built once and just put out on the web. It's really an active product. So just in the interest of time, I'm gonna just copy and paste this. So, you know, everybody's gonna see feedback that starts with Cindy and talks about donuts. So apologize for that. But, and meanwhile, if you guys are looking at this on your screen, you should be doing, you can be doing this yourself, right? So go ahead and complete your own so you can all see, you know, what the feedback looks like once we publish it just after 2 o'clock. So, okay.
The next
go ahead,
one
Jason.
Is comments about the teammates to the instructor. So if they want to express confidentially any kudos or concerns, they can do that.
Yeah, and this is something where sometimes if you give them the opportunity to give feedback to the teammates directly, but then also give feedback anonymously to the instructor, sometimes people who otherwise are conflict averse will kind of do the nice part with the teammates, but then actually give you a little bit more color in these comments. So here I'm going to turn on Cindy and say, okay.
You know me well.
I'm sorry, Cindy. I'm really picking on you, but you get the sunroom, so you know I'm a little jealous.
That's okay. I'm happy.
Okay, so then we'll have, I'll just put here more feedback. And
as Barbara's
get the
filling that
idea.
in, the last one is just a general comments on team dynamics that would go with the instructor as well. And that allows us to just keep our, keep an eye on how things are going, watch for any red flags or any potential causes for concern, if we might figure out if we might need to intervene. By the way, I also, when they, on their written feedback to each other, I grade them on a scale from 1 to 5. I give them a rubric and I ask them to, I tell them what the rubric is and I say, I'm going to just grade you on the quality of the feedback that you give to your teammates. Generally, okay, thanks, Melissa. Okay, well, we'll note that. So people want me to share the rubric at the end. So we will be sending out a handout. If for a reason I forget to include the rubric, of course, please remind me. I'll get that. It's very straightforward. Also, yes, Paul asked if this was the end of the eval. This is the end of the eval from the student perspective.
Okay, so then this is it. You see that students, the people completing it, including you, have the option to ask for a confirmation email. So that, and I strongly encourage this, that I tell them, look, I'm counting on getting your response. I will actually dock students' grades who don't respond to these evaluations. And I say, if you want to be sure that I got it, first of all, ask for a confirmation email. If you don't get a confirmation email, then ping me and let me check. But that goes a long way. So I ask for a confirmation email, and then I'm going to submit my feedback. And then you'll see there is also a confirmation screen that comes up, and that's it. And so I'm done with this particular survey. And as Jason said, we are having results published at 2 o'clock Eastern time at the top of the hour. So Jason, I think, is going to start talking about the design of a survey. Is that right, Jason?
Yes.
You're going to jump into that. So I'll unshare my screen and let you share your screen. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll transition. We'll give everybody a few minutes, and I'll let you confirm that they've had time to finish their surveys before I start demoing the design.
Yep.
So let's just give them a minute. I need to gather my thoughts here because I'm working in a different environment than I'm used to working in, as you know. Let's see. Okay. So let me make sure. All right, you stopped sharing, correct?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to share screen too. All right, so make sure am I up?
Yeah, I see a yes. Yep.
Okay. All right.
And by the way, Jason, I'm looking here, and it does look like we've had a number of, let's see, if we've gotten responses from Carlos, Christina, Jesse, Kathy Lovelace, Kathy Lundeen, Kelly Fisher, Melissa Fender, Cindy, who I'm sure is going to take it out on me, Kathleen Novak, Paul, Professor Vans, Rose. Yeah, so a lot of people. Anyway, I'll stop reading names, but I think we've gotten a large number of responses. So we'll have some good data to show once we publish.
I think Carlos has his hand up still, maybe.
Carlos, do you have a question? Let's see, you're muted right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still finishing mine, so I should be.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. We got time.
All right.
While Carlos is finishing, is there any pressing question about the student perspective? Not the design. We'll get the design.
I want to ask one before I forget.
Okay.
How do you handle it with the students that don't complete these things? Because that is a problem that without them, again, if you take the approach of everybody works the same with a silent, response, or how do you manage?
So I'll start with that one. I like I said a minute ago, I've sort of evolved over a few years to the place where I will tell the students, you're going to lose 10% of your participation grade if you don't complete this, that this is considered to be part of class participation. This is part of helping to develop your fellow classmates and to participate in the team. And, if you don't, so it's an assignment for them. I mean, it's an absolute expectation. And I do that. And if they don't fill it out, and inevitably there's usually one person who doesn't, that's 10% off of their participation grade. And in my class, participation is usually somewhere between 20 and 30% of the final grade. So that's 2 to 3 points docked from their final grade. So it's a pretty heavy incentive. But I think it also points to the value that I put on these and on just, you know, giving peer feedback in general. Jason, did you want to add to that?
I generally a similar approach, not exactly the same, but I build it into the professionalism score as far as overall participation. Professionalism participation, they'll get dinged like Barbara. They also will get a 0, of course, for the quality of the feedback they provided their peers because they didn't do any. So I should say 0 to 5. 0 is not done at all. And yeah, and that unfortunately does not always motivate them, but it seems to get some of their attention. So
yeah, I found that my participation rate went from like 80% up to, you know, high 90s after I made that change, and I have not gotten a single complaint about it.
Okay. All right, anybody else still going? Also, I'm gonna lower your hand if you have any questions.
Well, I think Melissa, are you still doing your survey? Is that why, were you? Oh, you're muted, so I can't hear you, but. I'm sorry, Melissa, you're still on mute. Here, let me see if I can unmute you. There you go. Oh, no, sorry. I wasn't able to unmute you.
Now?
There we go.
Yeah, there it is.
Yes.
Can you hear
Yes.
me now? No, yes, I was typing the comments part at the bottom
Okay.
of the
Okay.
survey.
Okay. Alrighty.
I'll have it in like 30 seconds. I'll just.
Okay. Yeah, make sure you get it in the next couple of minutes just so that everything gets published together. Yep, your data isn't lost. Okay, great.
All right,
All
so
right.
well, let's move on. Melissa's almost done. I'll show you while she's finishing up, just introduce, and should be, my screen should be shared. You should see, and excuse me, I got to turn away from the rest of you to look at my other screen where I'm working. So this is the home screen. If you log into Teammates, and it shows right here the courses that we have. I have my demo course for what we're doing today, my OB class from last fall, and the 4 evaluations we did, as I mentioned previously. And then also, when you sign up, and many of you already have obtained a Teammates account, a registered instructor account, it comes with built-in demos. Now, not this April and Rob test one that I'm highlighting here. That's one I built. But these other ones come with the session. They actually come with dummy students and emails, and you can use that to, as we call a sandbox. You can play around, edit, change things, and not worry about anything going wrong there because it's all just a sandbox, as we say.
Jason, I believe you can also copy those and use them as templates as like a starting point for your own evaluation.
Absolutely.
So it's both a sandbox, but also a template.
Yeah. So and we'll get to that in a second. The first thing you're going to do, of course, is build a course if you haven't done that before. So this is, you just click the add the course, and you can call it any course you want to call it, and we'll call it vMOBTS course 2, right? And say demonstration live demo number 2, right? And add a course. And oh, excuse me, apparently we can't have the hashtag in there. So let's add the course. Oh, what is it not like now? I'm sorry. It's not.
Jason, I think it's the for the course ID, you're not supposed to have spaces. So yeah, so just take out the space. You should be good then.
Thank you. There we go. So there it is. So here's our live demo second course. And I'll use this one to avoid inadvertently emailing anybody. And then once you create the course, the next thing you would do is add students. And it's very straightforward. You can copy and paste directly out of an Excel or any other table. In this case, they have examples down here. So you can see how easy it is simply just by copying their example data and pasting it in like so. And then you can just add those. Oh, excuse me, not that, I'm sorry, the add row, I mistake, I clicked the wrong button. Add row is if you have more students than what the current space allows here. So here we're at 26. We can then add a 27th if you need, so, and so forth. But we're just gonna roll these 6. And of course, many of us have more than 20 or 26 students in the class. Oh, okay.
Jason, you just, yeah, that's the typo there.
Yep.
That's all.
There we go, thank you.
You need a U after your T there.
Yeah, I had it's had insert on it. I'm hitting every error that I never hit when I'm doing this by myself. So, okay, now they're in. All right, you can, and then you can make further changes if you want, which we don't want to, but we could. So we'll go back to courses. And then if, for example, you decide, oh, that some student dropped the course, I can view here, and then I can just delete whoever, just delete this person. And that's it. And you can, there's a bunch of other things you can do here. You can invite them to join teammates formally. Doesn't really change anything for them at this point that I know of. I know Barbara and I talked about that, but you said there was nothing that does for them, right?
Sorry, I'm sorry, I was typing a chat. What was that, Jay?
Join them to use, to join teammates.
Yeah, I've never found any benefit for that. I've never required my students to join teammates. I honestly don't know what it even does. So I wouldn't say you don't have to push your students to do that. Just make sure, you know, as long as you enroll them with an email address, they'll get the link, and that's all they really need.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll go back to the course, and that's pretty much it. Otherwise, if you're done with the course, you can archive it, but that's just for housekeeping purposes. Now, the part that you really want to see is sessions. So at the top, click sessions. And this is where you can create a new peer evaluation. So you can make, there's a couple of options you have. You can make it with your own questions, custom questions, using the types predefined types they have, of which there are 10, or you can use their template. So I'm going to use my own questions. You could also, if you already had a survey that you like, you can copy it from here. You can hit copy here and you can pick one of those. I'm not going to do that right now, but it is instantaneous. It works very well. All right, so I'm going to do my own questions. Course ID will be the one we just created, and this will be live demo. And I'll just leave that. Now, the next thing you do here is you set your opening time, like the survey you just did. I had to set that for 1 o'clock. Part of the reason I was not able to get some of you into that demo is because the session times are always right on the hour. So in order to, as you see here, you drop down, you have to pick right. I don't know why they did that, but that's the way it works right now. So I could only get people in who I had in the roster before 1 p.m. Otherwise, we have to wait till 2, and that would be a high risk move from our side. So you set an open time, a closing time, and then you can also give them a grace period of how much after the closing time they have to get their feedback in. Okay, so let's see, let's set this for tomorrow, 2 o'clock. We'll do the close at, say, Friday at 5, and we'll give them a grace period of 30 minutes because we're feeling generous.
While Jason's doing that, I'm going to ask, did anybody happen to get some emails from teammates last night? Did anybody? No? Okay. I did, Jason, and so I was wondering if our test.
Fault. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I was wondering if everybody had gotten it or not, because that would have been a good sense of how opening and closing looks like.
Yeah, well, it was when we were doing that test survey, instead of canceling, I created it, and then so that's why it wound up going out. Okay, so now once you've created the session, you've set the session settings, it's time to add a question. Now, there's a whole bunch of options for you. And one, right off the bat, it allows you to use the predefined questions that I showed before. It said use your own questions or use their template. Well, if you change your mind, good news, you can still use their template, and that's here. Right, so there's 5. I don't know why that little box is showing up here. Okay, that went away. All right, sorry about that. If you could see that little black box, that was distracting me and it was probably distracting you. So here you go. They have 5 predefined questions that you can add. You can pick some subset thereof. And we're going to review how these questions work. So I'm not going to pick any of them right now. I'm just going to go briefly review them with you when we go here. Okay, so let's see. So from this menu, you've already seen an essay question, qualitative feedback. You've seen a distribute points among, that was the first quantitative, and you've seen a forced rank. Okay, now, so let's talk about the other types. I don't think we're going to have time to go through each type, but in case you're interested in other types, I'll just briefly touch on each one. Multiple choice, single or answer is just as it decided. If you want to have predefined responses like a Likert scale or some sort, or you want them to have some sort of multiple choice question you want to ask them, this is your option. You can also do that with rubric, which allows you to set up multiple choice questions in one table. I'm not going to demo that. I've never used it, and it's more complicated than I want to deal with, but that might be your style. You can also have a numerical scale question if you just want to do raw scoring, like grade each person out of 100, for example. Again, you've seen distribute points among people. You can distribute points, you've seen distribute points among recipients. You can distribute points among options. So if you want to do more focused feedback for a specific person, they can rate people on, for example, their relative strengths, right? If you're rating me as a presenter, okay, what are your relative strengths in terms of organization, presentation style, sense of humor, ability to deal with snafus, and so forth, right? And you could score somebody that way. I never use that, but somebody out there might like that. And then the next one that would probably be of interest to many people, and Barbara, I think you use this one, the team contribution question.
Yes, I do. Yeah. So
this question, and I think I'll just show it to you because this one is, I think the rest is self-explanatory.
Yeah, this one's easier to look at, this one. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just make this one. All right. So how much did each person contribute
and just to clarify here, I know Jason's typing quickly, but this is actually kind of an over under, plus or minus % relative to, their even contributions. So you would want to, make sure to word it appropriately so that, students know exactly how to do the over under.
Sure. And before we can see that part, because that's what you have to actually look at the question, preview it to see that, we have to pick a feedback path. Well, actually, it's not.
Yeah, so for the team,
right,
so the feedback path is set for this particular type of question. The feedback path is preset as students giving feedback on themselves and their team members because of the nature of the question. Typically in some of these more open-ended questions, you'll have options there. Students giving to team members, students giving to themselves, students giving to instructors, instructors giving to students, even instructors giving to instructors. There's even an option in here because of the multiple sections. If you happen to have a whole bunch of TAs and you want to wrap their own peer evaluation into you know, your student peer evaluation, you can do that as well. So there are a lot of options there. We just don't see it because of the nature of this particular question.
Sure, and even in some countries, you have the model where you have multiple instructors over the term. The same students will have multiple instructors, so they would rate them. And
yes.
And we'll show what that looks like in a minute. I forgot this question didn't have that option. It does, however, have visibility options. So in this case, now the visibility options do range depending on the question. In this case, it can be shown anonymously to the recipient and team members, invisible instructors, or only visible to the instructors. So it depends on who do you want to be able to see these scores or not. And so we will pick this one. This here explains in detail. Again, one of the things with this app that makes it a bit overwhelming and what inspired us to even do this session was that it has a lot of flexibility and a lot of features. So for somebody who's new to it, it can feel fairly overwhelming. And even, as you notice, I'm not on top of everything because there's just a lot to keep track of. But we will send you a handout that outlines all the details for you. So I'll save this question. And in the interest of time, we'll do one more to show the other features. So what's a type that we didn't talk about? I think we talked about all those. The rank options and rank recipients is very much like to distribute points among options and distributes it among recipients. Same concept, it's just a forced ranking. But we can add one of those. So for rank recipients, you can allow them to give the same rank or not. I'm going to say no because I don't. You can, yeah, there's a lot of features here. You can put restrictions on how many they rank subsets or not. I'm going to rank them all by leaving everything blank. And then this is one of the questions where you can pick different feedback paths that Barbara was just describing. So they can actually, if you want to create a tool for yourself to generate feedback on your TAs, this is what you would pick. As the session creator, you're giving feedback on instructors in the course. Or students will give feedback on the instructors, as I mentioned in a situation where you have multiple instructors, the students' team members, or the students, team members, and the self. So in this question, if you want them to include themselves, you would click here. If you're me, you click the second one. So I'm going to click that. The other one, you can have the instructors give each other feedback, apparently. So, and then you get a lot more visibility options here. So we're going to pick.
So Jason, Sandy had a question about visibility, and it looks like, Sandy, that there is the visibility to recipient and instructors, which I think is not anonymous. So I think you would have the option to do sort of full disclosure if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, so this one would be the recipient and instructors would know who gave what score to the student. This one is the one I would go with, number 2. Is it shown anonymously to the recipient, but I, as the instructor, can see who gave what score. All right, so I'm going to save that. And then I think I'll just add an essay question just to round it out. And actually, I'll choose that from the template. Okay, so they already have ask each student to give confidential peer feedback to other team members. So I'll click that, which is a shortcut way of just adding an essay question and defining it. All right, now we can preview these as these different students. So we can see what they look like. All right, and this will look very familiar to what you saw earlier, whether it was on your own peer eval that you were giving or whether you're following Barbara. So now you can give scores to each person And this is the attribution. Barbara, do you want to talk about this item because you use it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so this is basically, as I said, an over/under to equal contribution. This has been significantly improved in format over the last year or so by teammates. So any of you who use teammates in the old days will find this, I think, a little more satisfying. And basically what it says, that students, for each team member, they rate whether they've contributed more or less or than an equal share or an equal share. I find this, I actually love doing this, including a self-rating, so having the students rating themselves as well as everybody else, for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's a great way to, if using anonymized data, it's a great way to demonstrate contribution bias, because you can show that the total self ratings are always they always add up to more than an equal share. But it's also great to see the delta between what students think they're doing and what their teammates think they're doing. And it goes in both directions. I will say in general, students, as you would expect, tend to overrate what they're doing, which is normal. But there are some who underrate what they're doing, which is also, very interesting. If I were doing this as a midterm feedback or midterm evaluation, I would actually be giving more feedback on that delta too. So I think it's interesting for a variety of reasons.
Okay. So we'll just pick 20 there and 20. Does it force them to balance out?
No, it does not have to balance out. Yeah, so.
All right, and then in the forced ranking, there's only 3 students. Okay. And then, of course, the same type of, this person didn't have enough donuts or whatever. So, and that's that. Okay, that's it. So, and you can't even submit this because it's not real.
Yeah, this is just the preview mode. So that's why we actually had you run through an actual survey earlier. Okay, so Jason, I just got an email that the feedback session has been closed.
Okay.
So
before we switch to looking at processing and publishing the data, are there any pressing questions about creating or designing a survey that we could address real quick? We only have time for 1 or 2 questions though.
Carlos, did you have a question?
No, I'm okay. I mean.
Okay.
Okay, I guess.
I know we've been answering a number of them in the chat, so I think we've already addressed a number of questions in the chat box.
All right. I've been oblivious to the chat the whole time because I've been looking at a different screen. Okay, so with that being said, well, let's get out of here. Oh, that's why that survey launched. Now I realize it doesn't. Once you create the items, they're created. So if you click done editing, it's created. The way to avoid a survey launching that you may not want is you actually have to change the settings on it or just delete it. So I will delete that survey because we don't need it. Oh, we actually have to publish it too. I forgot about that. So, but yeah, so now though your data are in, so we would go to closed. And so what you see here is the survey is open, not published. That's the one that went, I think, by accident last night. This one here, 2 o'clock has passed, so it's closed. You did it, but it's not published because we put a setting. You can have data published automatically. So once the survey closes, the students can see their evals. I personally don't like to use that, at least not with my classes. What I do instead is I view the results. Okay, so this screen is the session results. And you can look at, you still can download them if you want, and we'll see what that looks like in a bit, and then I'll explain why that can be messy and hard to deal with. So here
and I will say I never download my results. So Jason and I are different in that way. You can use this very robustly without ever downloading results, in my experience.
For those who would like to use this to make grade adjustments or for grading purposes, that's why I download them, is to I put them into a formula and actually come up with a grade adjustment for their project grades. And I'll explain that in a bit. Before I do that, I look at the responses. Okay. Now, the quantitative responses aren't so much of a concern. What is a concern is, did they give the right scores to the right people? And that you can figure out if you go into question 6. So, here's some very simple comments. Some people didn't respond. Where's Barbara's? Okay, here's Barbara's about Cindy, and I could say, add a comment. It appears you, gave the same feedback, right, and add that. Now, I can also moderate. I can actually change the response. I don't do that a lot. The main time I do that is when I can clearly see that the name here that they wrote to, it says Cindy here, but the actual person is Kathleen or Kathy, right? And then if I see they inverted their responses, I can adjust accordingly. And I will look and I'll triangulate the qualitative comments with the numeric comments, and if I can make a case to myself that it should be adjusted, I'll make the adjustment.
I will also say this would obviously be the place if there were inappropriate feedback being given by a student to another student, where you could take that out if necessary. That would be obviously in an extreme case. Obviously, you would also want to communicate with the student whose feedback you were adjusting, so that they were familiar with that. And I would say, Jason, I think the add comment actually comments to the recipient rather than the sender. So I'm not 100% sure about that.
All right, we'll have to do one to me.
Yeah, I think the add comment is like if somebody got really rough feedback and you want to sort of, say, well, maybe think about this in the context of, a particular meeting, or let me know if you'd like to discuss this further, something like that. It's going to vary very much depending on your goals for the session or for the survey.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. Thank you for that correction. So the inappropriate comments, and I just slipped my mind. There was one more case where I would make changes, and I don't know, it escapes me right now. But that was one of my recent. Oh, and the last thing is, this is a really convenient place if you're going to grade their feedback like I do with my rubric. It's very convenient because it's all sorted by who it is, and you can look at all their qualitative feedback in one place and assign a score to it. Now, mind you, I had 70 students, so I didn't give them detailed feedback on their feedback. I gave them a 1 through 5 score and gave them the rubric. If you have a smaller class, of course, you can give more detailed feedback as you like. All right, so then presuming you're okay with it, then you would publish the results, and that will make it visible. So if you did this, if I'm publishing it now you'll be able to go in and look at the feedback that you got from your hypothetical teammates.
So now that Jason has published, for those of you who did participate, who were enrolled in the course, you should be able to go back in. Jason, do they use the same link? I can't remember. Or do they get a different link when we publish?
Well, that's a good question.
Oh, you know what? I think you should have just gotten, I just got a new email. So you should have a new link that says feedback session results published. So this should be coming into your email now. It just arrived in my inbox. And Jason, I can share my screen. Can
we do that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. We can do that later.
Let's do that in a sec because
Yep, no worries.
I just want to show them real quick how I process it. And then that way it prevents us having to switch back and forth and sharing. So here you can download the results. I know somebody had a question about that. So I can open it. And it should come in. And there it is. No, that is, oh. Yes, okay. Oh, yeah, all right. I'm sorry, I was getting confused by that. It gives the title name, and I had mentioned my macro, and that's why I was confused. But anyway, these are your data. Now, one thing you'll notice about, we only had, what do we have, like 18 people? So from 18 people on 4 teams, we have
a lot.
We have over 1,000 lines, 1,000 line CSV. So that's a lot to process. So as Barbara mentioned earlier, what I do instead is I went through and made a macro. Oh, sorry, it's on my other screen. One sec, let me just drag it over. There it is. Okay, now, perhaps I'll start at the end because, so this is the end result of my macro, and that's starting with almost 3,000 lines of data. So now these are the actual data from my fall class. These are actual team names, but I have anonymized their actual names, so you don't know who they are. 2 things that I highlighted of interest. I used the first 4 responses, do a little bit of statistical acrobatics, and I come up with an adjustment for each teammate. As you can, and these should balance out to 100%, which they do down here, right? So I check that, make sure they all balance to 100, make sure it's working correctly. I also check these numbers relative to their rank. So as you see here, the person with the highest rank is not perfect, obviously, but it's close. It makes sense that the top 2 ranks have the top 2 grade adjustments. And what I do with these is I actually multiply these numbers by their team scores. And that's what their team grade is for them individually. Now, probably many ways to improve that, but that's what I have so far. And that's, I guess, be future iterations of this type of session at MOBTC. This particular macro, I'd have detailed instructions for it. I am happy to share it with you with the caveat that I am unavailable for support unless you want to pay my hourly rate, which I think you'd be much better off finding an undergrad who understands Excel macros and paying them some fraction of what I would charge. But I would, if you are interested in this, I'm happy to share it and the instructions. I actually, and also in the interest of disclosure and that I'm not being exploitative with this, I shared this macro with teammates. I gave it to them and said, here's what I'm doing. It would be great if teammates had this built in or had something like it built in, because there are many people, obviously some of you who asked, and people like me who want to do this. And I just happen to have a background that allows me to write macros like this, and whereas many instructors don't. So, or nor do they have the time.
And so maybe just briefly, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm the opposite end of the analytical spectrum here, at least when it comes to teammates. And what I do, honestly, is just go through I actually have a roster of teams, and so I grade them team by team. And I'm basically influencing their participation grade rather than a team grade. And they know that. And I go through and I just examine the answers for a team as a whole. I just go through the survey and I'm like, okay, so what did, who said what about who? And I look at the numbers. This is where the team contribution comes in real handy, because it gives me a very succinct view of not only how others are ranking, so I can see if there's a consistent like negative for the same team member, as opposed to just one person who kind of had a grudge against them. So that's where the team contribution questions come in real handy if you're going to do a less, sort of algorithmically driven analysis. So yeah.
By the way, I'm not competing. This I just like because I have a very large class size. It makes it more systematic. And the other thing is, for those who do not respond, part of the consequences, they don't get a say so into what other people's team grades are. So they can't complain about it if if they didn't contribute, they didn't vote, as the expression goes. So, Barbara, you wanted to show what looking at the your
I'll just show very quickly.
So I'll
yeah. Okay, great. And I'll share my screen. And so I can just quickly show you, these are my results that you guys gave me, right? And so we'll see what Cindy did to me here, but you can just see that I was, these are the distributions that I was given by my teammates from, for contribution to discussion, right? These are the responses that I gave. And then the same, so these were all the same question format. These first 4 were all the, distribution of 100 points. So I'll just scroll through those. Here's the forced ranking. You can see that 2 students thought I was awesome. 1 student did not, and 1 was kind of in between. This is again a reminder of how I ranked everybody. And then here's the open-ended. So now I can see, and again, I'm seeing it anonymously, so I don't know who told me what. Oh, I'm guessing, I do know probably who says always asking for donuts, but other than that, I think, it's pretty anonymous. And then again, you see here, oh, and Jason, I was wrong. Look at this. You were right. Okay. I actually got the comment. You were absolutely right. Oh, I guess we both can see it. Cindy, you should be able to see this comment as well. Is that right? Are you seeing it? I don't know if you're looking right now. Okay. But she'll let us know in a minute. I did. So you did see it. Okay, so the comments then, and it even says here, the comment is visible to response giver, response recipient, and instructor. So any comments that you as an instructor put in will be visible to both sides of the equation there. Okay, and then the comments about the teammate, my own responses, and then comments about team dynamics. It looks like I'm the only one who put anything in there. So at least on my team. All right. So that's what the student would see.
By the way, that add comment, I just checked it.
Oh, sorry, Jason. I think we have a question from Cindy.
Okay, sorry.
I did put a comment in number 8 that looks like you didn't see it. I said we should be more healthy.
Okay, so we need to check the settings on that then.
Only shown to instructor.
Oh, all right. So for the
that was in the setting.
Okay, that's why. So right. Thank you. It's so, and I'm a student here. Forgot for a minute. I'm a student, so Jason would be the only one who would see that because he's set up as the instructor. You're right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I can look at that. That add comment, by the way, there are visibility settings, so you can choose who sees the comment.
Sure, great. Okay.
Yeah. You decide if you want the recipient or the giver or both to see the comment.
Oh, perfect.
And Cindy, Team B. Yes, Cindy, I do see your comment under number 8. We need to eat more healthy foods. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for that feedback.
Tough in Boston, getting away from Dunkin's.
So one thing that Cindy asked that I think is important to note is that, and I was actually just answering her right now in the chat, is we've had you kind of as a student, but you also will obviously be mostly using this as an instructor. And so you want to make sure when you go into Teammates in the home screen, you'll see before you log in, there are 2 possible ways to log in. One, it says instructor login and student login up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. So you want to make sure that you're going in normally as an instructor, right? Today I was logged in as a student, but that's very unusual. So just make sure that you're logging into your correct role when you go in to, design surveys and so forth.
All right, Barbara, we're at the 2:27 right now, so we should wrap up.
Okay. So I'm just going to flip through here and see. think we've pretty much made it through. Should I just go to their questions, Jason?
I think that's the best we can do at this point. And,
Okay. Alrighty.
We're very glad there was so much interest. It was much greater than we anticipated. So.
Yeah, which is great. Always a good feeling, even virtually. So I just want to acknowledge the questions that we received, and thank you for being so thoughtful in the pre-survey. I think that we have answered most of these questions in the course of the session. We've talked about, how you set up students to use the technology to minimize potential drama. The key here is that feedback path and the visibility settings. So you want to be super careful about setting those up. And also remember that once you get a survey set up, you can copy it and reuse it infinite numbers of times. So this gets a lot easier after the first time out. It gets a lot faster. Believe me, I do these things now in like 5 minutes for new classes. We talked about best practices. We showed you the template for pre-made questionnaires. We talked about the logistics of setup and the types of questions. The price, that was a great question. It's free for everybody. So the price is right. And yes, I mean, this definitely can be used for baseline and then, follow-up assessments. If you want to show changes to key metrics, that would probably require some download and, Excel wrangling. I don't think that can be done in Teammates. But if you find out that it can, let us know. Yeah. And then feedback to the team leader. There is a hack available to give feedback just to a team leader if there's one leader for a team. And that is to set up a question that the format is self-evaluation. So the student, it says the student is evaluating themselves. So this would be an open-ended question. But then in the prompt, ask them to evaluate the team leader. So, and say, and the other thing I recommend is that you have them name the team leader in their feedback, because what you will get as the instructor is just the feedback without the name of the team leader attached. So it's a little bit of a hack. It's not perfect, but it is possible to do this. And then obviously self-rating, we showed how that's done. We showed about exporting evaluations to Excel and publishing to report back to students. So I hope that we managed to address all of those issues in a short period of time. We are right at 2:30. I understand if people have to go, but we have asked Brandon to extend the room for a few more minutes. If there are any other questions, we'd love to know your thoughts and reactions. Thoughts about how you might leverage Teammates for your teaching, anything else that we haven't addressed. And I'll try and keep an eye on the chat even as we're talking.
Barbara, if you don't use a macro or anything like that, do you download all of those data to Excel and do a sort, or how do you do that? Or don't you?
It would be, so you had two options, or either like Barbara does, is to look at it as we were doing.
You don't download it though.
I don't download it.
Okay.
No, I don't. No, I just never. I think I tried my first time out, and I was just like, for what I'm doing, my class sizes are also smaller, so it's easier for me to. And I've worked intensively with them, and our teams also do a lot of in-class work, so I'm less, numbers driven, I guess, and more looking at the qualitative feedback and looking at the team contribution numbers. Those I think are the things that matter most to me. And I've found that I can do that without downloading the data.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thoughts?
Have you had, do you get, let's try this again. Were you using a different way of doing it before? I guess what I'm trying to do is going through in my head, what's likely to be the student's reaction if and when I start using this versus how they reacted when I did a different method.
So we can each answer that, because I think our answers are different. I was using paper, paper and pencil evaluations that they had to fill out and hand in. I think I maybe went for a semester to some email version of that. And so when I went to teammates, my students were thrilled. I mean, it was just because they get more feedback than I was giving them before. It's much more standardized and instantaneous. It's actually easier for them to fill out and faster. And so it made everything better. I don't know, Jason, do you want to answer that as well?
Well, I've done a range of things, and I've done the paper and pencil, and I got really bogged down in some classes trying to sort through it because I do have a quantitative bent and try to process numbers. And then I just punted, and until I had teammates, I just say, okay, grade each person on a scale of 0 to 100, right? And just use.
You can probably tell who the qualitative researcher is between the two of us, right? So yeah, I code the data for.
Yeah, no, I get that, because I switched from doing paper and pencil a few years ago to doing it online, just because if I did paper and pencil, there is going to be peer pressure of team people sitting next to one another in the classroom.
Yep.
And that was positively received, but I like the concept of the feedback as opposed to just, here's what happened to your grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else
Good.
before we go?
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. This was a great session, and it's so nice to see everybody. And thank you for all the engagement and the questions. And I'm attempting now to save the chat. We also recorded the session, so we should have a good documentation of this after the fact. And wishing you everybody a great rest of the conference.